Every evening, as dusk slowly yielded to night, a tiny, determined puppy would appear outside the imposing doors of the town hospital. This was no ordinary stray. Without fail, the little dog braved the bitter cold and thick darkness, curling up near the entrance as if drawn by an unseen force. The hospital's grand architecture and warm, golden lights shone like a beacon on the icy pavement, casting long shadows that danced with flickers of hope and mystery. Patients and visitors hurried in and out, wrapped in heavy coats and scarves, their chatter and hurried footsteps blending with the crisp night air. Yet amid this bustling scene, one small figure stood apart, a pup with matted fur, droopy ears, and tired, soulful eyes that seemed to tell a story of longing and loss. There was something almost otherworldly about the creature's silent vigil, as if it were waiting for an event of great personal importance. In the quiet moments before the hospital's revolving doors turned once again, the little dog exuded a calm determination. His presence created an unspoken tension between the busy world inside and the lonely, hopeful act of waiting outside, a mystery that would soon captivate the heart of someone unexpected. The scene was almost cinematic in its contrast. The stark, sterile brightness of the hospital clashed with the gentle vulnerability of this small, shivering life. The wind whispered through nearby trees, carrying with it echoes of old memories, and the pavement reflected the shimmering glow of the building. The puppy's presence was subtle yet magnetic, a silent plea that resonated with anyone who took a closer look. Neighbors passing by paused for a moment, their eyes softening as they acknowledged the quiet tragedy in its gaze. In this nightly ritual, the little dog seemed to bridge the gap between the bustling modern world and an older, almost forgotten sense of loyalty and loss. His unwavering presence outside the hospital set the stage for a story of hope, compassion, and healing that was about to unfold in unexpected ways. It was on one particularly frosty winter evening that Dr. Thomas Walker, a senior pediatrician known for his no-nonsense demeanor, first noticed the little creature. After a long day filled with urgent cases and endless reports, Thomas stepped out of the hospital with the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. As he descended the steps into the cold night, his eyes fell upon the small puppy huddled near the entrance. "What's he doing here?" he muttered under his breath, adjusting his scarf against the biting chill. His tone, usually brisk and businesslike, held a trace of curiosity and unexpected tenderness. Nearby, a caring nurse who had overheard his quiet remarked softly, "He's been here every evening for weeks. Poor thing. He must be waiting for someone inside." Those words lingered in Thomas's mind like a soft echo. He paused, momentarily forgetting the pressures of his busy day as he focused on the puppy's forlorn eyes. There was something almost mesmerizing about the way the dog sat, a picture of quiet determination and sorrow. In that fleeting moment, the rigid clinical boundaries that Thomas maintained for so long began to blur. The sight of the little creature evoked memories of lost hopes and unspoken promises. Even though he was not one to indulge in sentimentality, Thomas felt a stirring of compassion deep within. That brief encounter marked the beginning of a transformation. The mysterious vigil of the puppy had planted a seed of empathy in a heart that had long been hardened by the routine of medicine. For the first time in many years, the thought of an unspoken bond, a story of deep loyalty and loss, began to resonate with him in ways he had never anticipated. The following evening, Thomas found himself once again at the hospital, weighed down by overdue reports and a schedule brimming with appointments. Yet as he exited the building into the chill of the night, he was met with the same striking scene. The little puppy, unwavering in its vigil, sat in the exact same spot as before. Now, soft snow began to fall, each delicate flake landing gently on the pup's disheveled fur, accentuating the raw vulnerability of its posture. Despite the soft snowfall and the encroaching cold, the dog remained still, its eyes fixed on the hospital's entrance with an almost supernatural intensity. Thomas paused for several moments, his clinical mind briefly overtaken by the allure of this persistent mystery. Though he had never considered himself an animal lover, the steady, silent presence of the dog tugged at his heart in ways that surprised him. He stepped closer, his breath visible in the frigid air, and crouched down just a few feet from the pup. "You're still here, huh?" he said softly, his voice carrying both wonder and a hint of sadness. The puppy's ears twitched as it lifted its head slightly, its gaze never wavering. There was no frantic movement, no obvious plea for food or shelter. Rather, it was as if the dog was holding onto a hope or memory. Thomas's heart tightened as he observed the deep, soulful look in those eyes, a look that whispered secrets of pain and longing, of memories too heavy to forget. That silent exchange created a bridge between the hardened exterior of a busy doctor and a creature that was living out a profound story of loss. In that brief moment of stillness, the world around them seemed to fade into insignificance, leaving only the quiet, compelling promise of an unspoken connection that beckoned Thomas to understand more. That night, as Thomas drove home beneath a sky streaked with the remnants of twilight, his mind was abuzz with questions about the little creature. Who had the dog once belonged to? What force could inspire such unwavering loyalty and deep sorrow in a being so small? His thoughts, normally fixated on diagnoses and medical charts, now wandered into the tender realm of human emotion and unspoken grief. He replayed the nurse's soft observation, waiting for someone inside, over and over, each repetition deepening his curiosity. The idea that the pup might be waiting for a lost companion, perhaps even for a patient who had slipped away into silence, filled him with a quiet yet persistent melancholy. In the days that followed, every time Thomas left the hospital, the familiar scene greeted him. The little dog was always there, as if etched into the very fabric of the night. Despite the freezing air and the rush of other commuters, the pup's silent vigil never wavered. Thomas found himself inexplicably drawn to that steady presence. He began to linger, taking in every detail. The slight tilt of the head, the soft set of the eyes, the almost imperceptible quiver in its body. This nightly routine, juxtaposed against the impersonal, efficient world of the hospital, created an emotional dissonance that was both unsettling and deeply moving. It was as if the dog's presence was a quiet reminder of all that was tender and fragile in a world dominated by routine and hard facts. Each night, the mystery grew, and with it, Thomas's determination to understand the silent message behind those sorrowful eyes. Unable to stand the sight of the shivering pup any longer one harsh evening, Thomas decided to act on impulse. He retrieved a small, well-worn blanket from his car, an item that had once provided him comfort on long, cold nights, and carefully draped it over the little dog. "Here, this should help," he murmured softly, his voice tender as he knelt beside the creature. For a long, suspended moment, time seemed to slow down. The hospital's bright lights, the bustling crowds, and even the biting cold faded into the background as an intimate exchange unfolded between man and animal. The puppy allowed the blanket to settle over its frail body, its eyes meeting Thomas's in a silent, powerful dialogue of trust and gratitude. That single act of kindness stirred something profound within Thomas. As he watched the pup relax under the blanket's warmth, he recalled moments from his own childhood when a simple gesture could make all the difference in a lonely world. It was as if the little dog had silently acknowledged the gift, and in doing so, had imparted an unspoken message to Thomas about the transformative power of empathy. The scene was heart-rending, a solitary life met with a compassionate act in a moment that transcended the ordinary. In that fleeting, tender moment, the harshness of the outside world softened, replaced by a fragile connection that spoke of hope, resilience, and the possibility of healing even the deepest wounds. That night, long after Thomas returned home, the image of the puppy huddled beneath the blanket lingered in his thoughts. Sleep proved elusive as the gentle rhythm of the night was punctuated by memories and quiet reflections. He wondered if this small creature, standing at the threshold of life's mysteries, was offering him a glimpse into a realm where compassion reigned over duty. The memory of that act of kindness, simple yet profound, became a beacon for him, a reminder that even in a world dictated by logic and science, the language of the heart was indispensable. The very next morning, during a brief lunch break at the hospital, Thomas couldn't shake the questions that had taken root in his mind. With a mixture of determination and uncertainty, he approached the reception desk. "Has anyone reported a missing dog?" he asked quietly, his eyes darting toward the entrance where the familiar scene had unfolded the previous night. The receptionist, caught off guard by his inquiry, replied briskly, "Not that I know of." Thomas pressed on, "Do you think he might belong to one of our patients?" His tone was earnest, his mind already racing with possibilities. "If anyone asks about him, please let me know," he added, a plea hidden in his calm exterior. Over the next week, Thomas's curiosity morphed into quiet resolve. Each evening as he left the hospital, he began leaving a small dish of food and a bowl of water near the door, a silent gesture of care for the waiting pup. Every morning, as he arrived, he noted with a mix of satisfaction and lingering concern that the dishes were empty. Yet the little dog continued its silent vigil, an enigma that defied easy explanation. The routine, simple as it was, began to weave itself into the fabric of Thomas's daily life. It was as if the pup's loyalty was a challenge to the clinical detachment he prided himself on, a challenge that invited him to look beyond the surface and confront the fragile humanity behind every heartbeat. That week, the recurring sight of the dog spurred Thomas into introspection. He began to consider the possibility that there was more to this creature's steadfast presence than mere chance. Every empty bowl, every quiet moment spent watching the dog, deepened his conviction that there was a story here waiting to be told. A story of loyalty, loss, and unspoken love that bridged the gap between the sterile corridors of the hospital and the raw emotions of everyday life. On the weekend following that long week of silent observations, a subtle shift occurred that hinted at the possibility of trust. As Thomas approached the hospital entrance one crisp evening, he noticed a small cluster of nurses gathered around the puppy. Among them was Sarah, a kind, gentle nurse known for her compassionate nature. With her soft, caring hands, Sarah was tenderly stroking the pup's head, her touch seemingly soothing the creature's deep-seated anxiety. "He finally let someone touch him," she said with a warm smile as Thomas drew near, her voice carrying both relief and admiration for the quiet progress. Feeling emboldened by Sarah's gentle approach, Thomas slowly crouched down beside the dog. "Is it true, buddy? Are you beginning to trust us?" he asked in a whisper, careful not to startle the small animal. The puppy did not recoil. Instead, it lifted its head ever so slightly, its eyes reflecting both caution and a burgeoning sense of hope. In that fragile moment, a silent understanding passed between them, a promise that perhaps neither was as alone as they appeared. For Thomas, this was the first tangible sign that the mystery of the dog might eventually be unraveled through kindness and patience. That evening, as the sky deepened into night and the hospital's lights glimmered softly, Thomas felt a growing resolve. The dog's trust, though tentative, was a precious gift, a symbol that even the most guarded souls could be reached with gentle care. The moment was a turning point, marking the beginning of a relationship that would soon reshape Thomas's understanding of compassion and duty. It was in that quiet exchange of glances and soft words that the seeds of a deep bond were sown, one that would grow steadily with every passing day. The little creature's willingness to accept a touch and a kind word signaled the start of a journey where trust would slowly replace loneliness, and every small gesture of kindness would ripple outward into something greater than either of them could imagine. The very next morning, driven by an inner determination he could no longer ignore, Thomas arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. The chill in the air was sharp, yet his mind was even sharper, focused on uncovering the mystery behind the little dog's unwavering vigil. At the reception desk, he once again inquired, "Any updates on a missing dog?" The receptionist, busy with her routine tasks, apologized. "I'm sorry, Dr. Walker, no reports, no inquiries. It's as if he just appeared one day and made this place his home." Thomas's gaze drifted toward the hospital entrance, where the pup sat like an enduring symbol of forgotten hope. The thought of leaving this enigma unresolved gnawed at him relentlessly. After completing his morning rounds, Thomas sought out Sarah with a determined urgency. "I think we need to do more," he stated firmly, his voice tinged with the quiet desperation of someone who had found a piece of his own soul in the eyes of a small creature. "That dog isn't here by chance." Sarah, her expression both empathetic and inquisitive, tilted her head. "You really care about him, don't you?" she observed gently. Thomas hesitated only for a moment before nodding, his eyes reflecting a storm of emotions. "It's hard to explain. There's something about him, a missing piece in his story that I must uncover." With a soft smile, Sarah offered, "I have a friend at the animal shelter who might help us check if he's microchipped. That could be our first clue." Thomas agreed wholeheartedly, feeling that every minute spent unraveling this mystery was a step toward healing not only for the dog but for himself as well. That evening, Sarah returned with a leash in hand. With a blend of gentle coaxing and tender care, she managed to secure the leash around the pup's neck, a moment that symbolized the start of mutual trust. Though the dog's small frame trembled with both cold and apprehension, it allowed itself to be led inside the hospital. Thomas watched the transformation with mixed emotions, aware that this simple act was more significant than it appeared. At the shelter, a technician scanned the pup for a microchip. "Nothing registered," the technician noted with concern. Thomas's jaw tightened with resolve. "So what now?" he asked quietly. Sarah suggested, "Let's post his picture online on local community boards and social media. Perhaps someone will recognize him or claim him." As the images were shared far and wide, Thomas couldn't help but wonder, if the pup truly had an owner, why had no one come forward all these weeks? The unanswered question only deepened his resolve to uncover every detail of this unfolding mystery. In the days that followed, Thomas's attachment to the little pup deepened. Although he had not yet taken the dog home permanently, he found himself drawn to the creature's quiet presence outside the hospital. It became a ritual, a moment of reflection and tenderness in a life otherwise defined by clinical routines. Thomas began speaking to the dog, as if to bridge the gap between the sterile corridors of medicine and the raw emotions of everyday life. "I never really understood what loyalty meant until I met you," he said one evening as he sat on the hospital steps, his voice soft and earnest. "My work is all about routine, fixing things and moving on, but you stay here no matter what." The pup tilted its head, as if in silent acknowledgement, and that simple gesture resonated deeply with Thomas. Even as a busy doctor, Thomas found solace in these moments of quiet connection. Yet, lingering questions remained. Who was the pup waiting for? What was the story behind those sorrowful eyes that held such deep, unspoken pain? One day, while waiting in the crowded reception area of the hospital, Thomas overheard two elderly patients discussing a story. One said in a low, thoughtful tone, "That dog reminds me of a tale, a dog that waited outside a train station for years after his owner passed away." Thomas's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the pup's owner had indeed been lost forever? The thought sent a shiver down his spine, igniting a fierce determination to learn the truth. Motivated by the need to understand, Thomas and Sarah embarked on a meticulous review of patient records. Their search was slow and painstaking, but every detail mattered. As they sifted through files and handwritten notes, the possibility that the dog might be a loyal remnant of a tragic loss grew ever more real. In this search for answers, Thomas began to see the pup not just as a stray, but as a silent messenger carrying the weight of untold stories, a symbol of loyalty and lingering sorrow that demanded to be understood. That very evening, with the weight of the investigation heavy on his mind, Thomas returned to the hospital steps, where the little dog continued its silent vigil. He leaned closer and softly uttered, "Edward Langley," testing the name as if it held the secret key to the mystery. In an almost imperceptible moment, the pup's ears twitched and its eyes softened, a fleeting recognition that sent a jolt of emotion through Thomas. His throat constricted as he whispered, "If that's true, then I'm so sorry. I'm sorry you lost him." Gently, he reached out and stroked the dog's fur, feeling the raw vulnerability of a creature who had lost so much. In that tender moment, Thomas vowed, "You're not alone anymore. I promise I'll take care of you." Unable to dismiss the possibility that the dog might be mourning someone dear, Thomas resolved to uncover more about Edward Langley. During his lunch break that day, he pored over hospital records and asked discreet questions among his colleagues, piecing together fragments of Edward's brief but poignant life. He learned that Edward had been a quiet, solitary man, a soul who had lived alone with few connections and had passed away swiftly after a sudden heart attack. The notion that the pup might be the loyal companion of a man whose life had slipped away into obscurity filled Thomas with both sorrow and determination. The connection between the pup and the memory of Edward grew stronger in Thomas's mind, and he realized that understanding this bond was not only a matter of compassion for the dog but also a way to honor a forgotten life. As the night deepened and the hospital lights flickered against the darkness, Thomas felt a profound empathy welling up inside him. The act of softly speaking Edward's name, combined with a gentle response from the dog, had opened a doorway to a story that transcended mere coincidence. In that moment, Thomas knew that his journey was only just beginning, a journey to bridge the gap between the past and the present, to bring light to a forgotten legacy, and to ensure that the bonds of love and loyalty endured long after the echoes of loss had faded. Over the next several days, Thomas's determination grew into a resolute quest for answers. With his heart heavy but hopeful, he decided to visit the address listed in Edward's file. The modest single-story home on the edge of town was overgrown with wildflowers and untended grass, its faded paint and creaking shutters whispering stories of bygone eras. As Thomas knocked on the weathered door, the sound of his knock was absorbed by the silence of the neglected house. When no one answered, he tried the handle and discovered it was locked. Standing on the doorstep, he felt the weight of memories pressing in from all sides. A neighbor, tending to her garden in the soft glow of the early evening, noticed his forlorn figure. "Can I help you?" she asked gently, her voice full of quiet curiosity and compassion. Thomas introduced himself, explaining, I'm Dr. Walker from the hospital where Edward Langley was admitted. I'm trying to learn more about him." The neighbor's eyes lit up with recognition as she recalled Edward fondly. "Oh, Edward, bless his soul," she murmured, her voice soft with reminiscence. "He was always so kind, though he kept mostly to himself. I remember he had a little brown dog with the sweetest eyes that never left his side." Thomas's heart sank further as he inquired, "Do you know what happened to the dog after Edward passed?" With a sorrowful shake of her head, the neighbor replied, "I assumed he ran off, heartbroken and lost." Her words confirmed Thomas's growing suspicion that the pup was indeed the loyal companion of Edward Langley, a man whose life had been defined by quiet love and solitude. Returning from the house with more questions than answers, Thomas felt both the chill of the night and the warmth of empathy intermingling within him. The neighbor's recollections painted a picture of Edward as a gentle soul whose love for his dog had been his only constant. This revelation deepened Thomas's resolve to unravel the mystery. A mystery that was as much about a man's lost hope as it was about a dog's unwavering loyalty. Every step he took that evening was imbued with a sense of purpose and a silent promise to honor both Edward and his beloved companion. That very evening, with the mystery of Edward and the pup weighing on his heart, Thomas took the decisive step of bringing the little dog home. With a gentle tone and a careful touch, he approached Max with a leash in hand. "Hey, buddy," he murmured softly. "How about coming with me for a while? I'll take care of you." The pup, whose eyes flickered with both fear and cautious hope, hesitated only briefly before allowing Thomas to secure the leash. For the first time, Max followed him, not to a shelter, but into Thomas's car, as if accepting a lifeline from a compassionate stranger. At home, Thomas prepared a small, cozy space in a quiet corner of his living room. He arranged a soft bed, placed fresh bowls of water and food on a low table, and carefully set the atmosphere so that the dog might feel safe and welcome. As Max sniffed around, tentatively exploring his new surroundings, Thomas spoke in a reassuring tone. "It's not the hospital, but I hope you'll feel safe here." Over the following days, Max gradually grew more comfortable. He began following Thomas from room to room, his tentative steps evolving into a cautious exploration of a world that was slowly becoming less frightening. With every gentle pat and soft word, the bond between them deepened, a bond that bridged the gap between a lonely past and a hopeful future. Yet, even as Max settled into his new home, subtle signs of his old loyalty surfaced. Some evenings, Max would sit by the door, his eyes gazing into the darkness as if waiting for someone who would never return. At other times, he perked up at the sound of passing cars before succumbing to a quiet sadness. One night, as Thomas worked late at his kitchen table, he noticed Max pacing near an old letter from Edward, now placed on a forgotten shelf. "What's wrong, buddy?" Thomas asked softly, setting down his pen. Max let out a gentle bark and moved closer, his eyes pleading silently. "I can't bring Edward back," Thomas whispered, "but I promise I'll do everything to make you happy." In that tender moment, as Max licked his hand and offered a small wag of his tail, Thomas realized that caring for Max was not just an act of compassion, it was a commitment to preserve a legacy of love and loyalty. The quiet evenings that followed were filled with a gentle rhythm of routine and quiet reflection. Each day, Thomas found solace in Max's steady presence, and in turn, Max slowly began to trust the kind words and gentle touches of his new guardian. Their home, once filled with the sterile echoes of solitude, now resonated with the soft hum of compassion and hope, a promise that no one, whether man or dog, should ever have to face the cold darkness alone. As the days turned into weeks, Thomas and Sarah dedicated themselves to uncovering every detail of Edward Langley's past. They scoured hospital records, revisited old patient files, and spoke with community members who had once known Edward. In a quiet corner of the hospital library, Thomas discovered a collection of handwritten notes and letters hinting at a deeper, more complex life than the clinical reports had ever shown. The documents spoke of unspoken regrets, estranged family ties, and missed opportunities for reconciliation. A tapestry of human emotions woven into the fabric of Edward's final days. It became increasingly evident that Edward had been a solitary man, one who held tightly to the love of his little dog even as he drifted through life in quiet isolation. The more Thomas read, the more he understood that Max was not simply a stray. He was the living embodiment of a man's enduring love, a symbol of a connection that transcended death itself. One journal entry, scrawled in shaky yet heartfelt script, read, "This little dog saved me when I felt utterly alone. I dream of a world where every animal has a second chance, a hope that Max embodies. With each revelation, Thomas felt his determination intensify. It was no longer just about a missing dog, it was about honoring a legacy built on compassion and quiet heroism. The investigation opened up avenues of thought that challenged Thomas's clinical detachment. In every faded line of handwriting and every carefully preserved photograph, he found echoes of a man who had loved deeply despite his isolation. This deepened his commitment to ensure that Edward's story would not be forgotten, that the bond between man and dog, as fragile as it might seem, was a force of hope and healing in a harsh world. Thomas resolved that he would do everything in his power to carry forward Edward's dream, transforming it into something tangible that could touch countless lives. As Thomas closed the journal one evening, he looked at Max with renewed understanding. The little dog, with its quiet eyes and steadfast loyalty, was a living bridge between a past filled with loss and a future bursting with potential. In that moment, Thomas felt a responsibility not only to care for Max but to give voice to Edward's unspoken legacy, a legacy that was now his to protect and share. Driven by a need to understand the full breadth of Edward's life, Thomas decided to reach out to Edward's estranged sister, Clara. Using the information gleaned from hospital records and community whispers, he located Clara, a woman whose life had been deeply scarred by years of regret and unresolved conflict. With a mixture of trepidation and resolve, Thomas made his way to Clara's modest home on the outskirts of the city. When Clara opened the door, her tired eyes and guarded expression told a story of pain, loss, and lingering hope. "Can I help you?" she asked softly, her voice betraying both curiosity and caution. Thomas introduced himself with gentle sincerity. "I'm Dr. Walker from the hospital where your brother, Edward, was admitted. I've been caring for his dog, Max, and I was hoping to learn more about Edward's final days." Clara's eyes widened as memories surged back. "Max," she whispered, her tone trembling with emotion as if the very name unlocked years of sorrow. Over a quiet cup of tea in her modest living room, Clara slowly revealed fragments of her fractured relationship with Edward, a relationship torn apart by misunderstandings over their inheritance and the stubborn pride that had kept them apart. "When I heard he was sick, I wanted to visit, but I was too afraid. I thought it might make things worse," she confessed, her voice heavy with regret. Thomas listened intently, his own heart aching at the sound of her words. "Your brother cared deeply, even if he kept his feelings hidden," he said softly. "Even in his final days, he tried to reach out." Moved by Clara's heartfelt account and the quiet pain that still resonated in her voice, Thomas and Clara formed an unexpected alliance. They agreed that the truth of Edward's life, and the unbreakable bond he shared with Max, needed to be honored. In that small, intimate setting, amid shared tears and tentative smiles, a new chapter began, a chapter in which the past would be reconciled with the present, and Edward's legacy would live on not only in Max's unwavering loyalty but also in the hearts of those who now dared to remember him. With a shared resolve to honor Edward's memory, Thomas and Clara embarked on a poignant journey to Edward's old home. The modest house, weathered by time and neglect, stood as a silent witness to a life that had been filled with both quiet dignity and unspoken sorrow. As they stepped inside, the musty scent of old wood and memories greeted them. Max, now a trusted companion, immediately recognized the familiar atmosphere, his tail giving a slow, tentative wag as he explored the rooms. In one corner of the living room, they discovered a faded, well-worn blanket, one that Max seemed to have cherished deeply. In another drawer, a small, dusty box revealed a trove of photographs, letters, and even a personal journal that belonged to Edward. Each piece of memorabilia told a fragment of Edward's story, a story of a man who had loved unconditionally, despite the loneliness that had defined his later years. One particularly moving journal entry read, "This little dog saved me when I felt completely alone. I dream of a world where every animal gets a second chance, a dream I hope to make real." As Thomas and Clara carefully turned each page, the pieces of Edward's life fell into place. The photographs captured quiet moments of tenderness, and the letters revealed the depth of a love that was both passionate and unspoken. Clara's eyes welled with tears as she recounted memories of her brother, and Thomas felt an overwhelming need to preserve every detail of this legacy. Their shared exploration was not just an academic pursuit, it was a deeply emotional experience that bound them together in a new, unexpected way. The home, though forlorn, was filled with echoes of laughter, quiet moments of joy, and the enduring imprint of Edward's gentle spirit. Thomas vowed then that he would ensure Edward's vision would live on, not just as a memory, but as a living, breathing testament to the power of compassion. Together, they left the house with a renewed sense of purpose and a promise to carry forward the dream that had so quietly shaped their lives. Inspired by their discoveries and the bittersweet memories of Edward, Thomas and Clara set about planning a memorial service in Edward's favorite park. The idea was simple yet profound: to celebrate a life that had been filled with unspoken love and to honor a bond that had transcended loss. Flyers were designed, community meetings were held, and word quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. On the day of the service, the park was transformed into a haven of remembrance, with soft music playing in the background, gentle murmurs of shared memories filling the air, and neighbors gathering with a collective sense of reverence. Thomas took to the stage, clutching a weathered letter penned by Edward. "Edward may no longer be with us," he began, his voice strong despite the undercurrent of sorrow. "But his spirit lives on in every act of kindness and every loyal heartbeat represented here today. This memorial is a tribute to a man who believed that every creature deserves love, and every life is worth saving." The crowd listened in silence, many with tears glistening in their eyes as they recalled their own memories of Edward, a quiet soul whose compassion had touched many lives. Max sat loyally at Thomas's side, his calm eyes reflecting a depth of understanding far beyond his years. The memorial service was more than just an event. It was a cathartic gathering that allowed the community to heal together. People shared stories, offered small tokens of remembrance, and pledged to honor Edward's legacy through acts of kindness. The service not only celebrated Edward's life but also sowed the seeds for a greater mission, one that would carry his dream into the future through tangible acts of compassion. By the time the service concluded, the park was filled with a renewed sense of hope and a commitment to ensure that Edward's gentle spirit would never be forgotten. As the Memorial Fund and related community projects gained momentum, a new challenge began to cast a shadow over the burgeoning movement. Gerald Parker, a sharply dressed representative from a high-profile marketing agency, approached Thomas with a bold proposal. In a sleek, modern office filled with the hum of ambition, Gerald laid out his vision to turn Max into the face of a nationwide pet adoption campaign. "Imagine," he said with persuasive energy, "the lives we could change. Max is not just a dog, he's a living symbol of hope and resilience. With a proper campaign, we could help so many animals and generate essential funding for the shelters." Thomas listened, his heart heavy with conflict. On one hand, the idea held undeniable potential. Reaching a wider audience could amplify Edward's legacy in ways that might benefit countless lives. On the other hand, Thomas's protective instincts flared at the thought of exploiting Max's story for profit. "Max is family," he replied firmly, his tone resolute yet tinged with sorrow. "I won't let his story be twisted for financial gain." Gerald's face hardened, and his next word sent a chill through the room. He hinted that another organization might lay claim to Max if Thomas did not agree to his terms. The implication was clear: if they did not cooperate, the integrity of Edward's legacy could be compromised by outside forces driven by profit rather than compassion. The tension escalated rapidly. Thomas and Clara, united in their determination to protect Max and honor Edward's memory, began to compile evidence. Old adoption papers, photographs, personal letters, that indisputably proved Max's rightful place as Edward's loyal companion. As Gerald's threat loomed, anonymous online posts and inflammatory ads began surfacing, questioning the legitimacy of the Memorial Fund and suggesting that the shelter was exploiting public sentiment for selfish gain. Every accusation stung, fueling Thomas's resolve to fight back. The battle for truth had begun, and every document, every heartfelt testimony, became a crucial weapon in the war against those who sought to twist a legacy for their own ends. In the days that followed Gerald's bold threat, the conflict escalated into a full-blown public relations and legal battle. Thomas and Clara worked tirelessly to expose the truth behind Gerald's manipulations. With the support of community members, they gathered evidence, emails, financial records, internal memos, that painted a clear picture of how Gerald's team had fabricated claims about Max's ownership. The evidence was painstakingly collected over long hours of research and numerous meetings with key allies. Among these allies was a young veterinary technician named Elena, whose recollections of Edward's passionate dreams added a vital human element to the growing body of evidence. He spoke of a mobile clinic not just as an idea, but as a mission, a calling to bring care to those forgotten by society, Elena recalled passionately. Her words underscored the authenticity of Edward's vision, contrasting sharply with Gerald's profit-driven approach. As the evidence mounted, anonymous online accounts and inflammatory ads became louder. Social media buzzed with rumors, and a small faction of critics began to question the integrity of the shelter's efforts. Thomas and Clara decided to organize a public town hall meeting, inviting concerned citizens, local media, and community leaders to hear the full story. In a packed room filled with tension and anticipation, Thomas took the stage. With a calm, measured voice, he laid out the timeline of events, presenting the evidence piece by piece, each document a testament to the truth that Max was indeed Edward's loyal companion. Clara followed, her voice trembling with both emotion and determination as she recounted the journey they had undertaken to honor a man's legacy. One particularly moving moment came when Samantha, a young veterinary technician whose testimony had already touched many hearts, stood up to speak. "Max isn't just a dog," she declared. "He's a symbol of hope and resilience. He belongs with those who honor Edward's true legacy." Her words brought a hush over the room, and the collective determination of the community shone through. In that moment, it became clear that the truth would not be silenced by those seeking profit. The town hall ended with resounding applause and a renewed pledge from everyone present to defend the legacy of Edward Langley at all costs. Buoyed by the success of the initial town hall, Thomas and Clara organized a series of community events to further reclaim the narrative and rally support around Edward's vision. The next town hall was held in a large community center, where residents, local media, and influential leaders gathered in droves. The atmosphere was electric, charged with a mixture of hope, anger, and determination. Thomas stood at the podium, recounting the remarkable story of Edward, a man whose quiet life had been filled with unyielding love for his loyal dog, Max. "This isn't just about one dog," he declared passionately. "It's about the indomitable spirit of compassion and the unbreakable bond between human and animal. Edward's legacy is a call to action for all of us." His words resonated deeply, stirring the crowd into a collective commitment to honor that legacy. Clara took the stage next, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. She recounted personal memories of her troubled relationship with Edward and how the rediscovery of Max had sparked a desire to mend old wounds and build a future founded on empathy and unity. "We honor him by giving Max the life he deserves," she said, "and by ensuring that every act of kindness carries forward his dream of a better world for all creatures." The event was punctuated by heartfelt testimonies from community members, neighbors, local pet owners, and even some former colleagues of Edward, each adding layers of depth to the narrative. The rally not only silenced critics but also ignited a wave of volunteerism, donations, and community partnerships that would prove crucial in the months to come. By the close of the town hall, the atmosphere was one of unity and resolve. The community had come together to stand up against exploitation, vowing to protect Edward's legacy and ensure that Max's story remained one of hope rather than profit. The rally was a turning point, a moment when the power of collective compassion began to reshape the destiny of a small shelter and a devoted dog. Just as the momentum of community support reached its peak, an unexpected crisis tested the resolve of Thomas, Clara, and their team. One stormy evening, an industrial accident led to a chemical spill in a nearby area, forcing an immediate evacuation of the surrounding community. Amid the chaos and rising floodwaters, distressing reports emerged of stray animals trapped in dangerous, flooded zones. Without hesitation, Thomas, Clara, and their dedicated team mobilized the mobile clinic for an emergency rescue mission. Volunteers worked around the clock, loading crates, medical supplies, and essential equipment into the van, while Thomas's calm, resolute voice guided the team through treacherous, waterlogged streets. In the midst of the chaos, a harrowing moment unfolded when Thomas found himself struggling on unstable ground. The rushing water threatened to sweep him away, and in that critical moment, Max appeared at his side. The little dog's unwavering presence provided the strength Thomas needed to regain his footing, enabling him to rescue a frightened puppy clinging desperately to a rooftop. The rescue mission, fraught with danger and uncertainty, ultimately saved dozens of animals. By dawn, news of Max's quiet heroism spread throughout the community, reinforcing the shelter's mission and galvanizing further support for the mobile clinic. In the aftermath, as the community rallied to rebuild and recover, Gerald Parker made one final desperate move, a frivolous lawsuit against the shelter, accusing the mobile clinic of endangering public safety during the crisis. The ensuing legal battle was arduous, yet the overwhelming evidence of the rescue efforts and the heartfelt testimonies from rescued pet owners and local authorities led to a swift dismissal of Gerald's case. Although the legal victory did little to erase the scars left by the ordeal, It reaffirmed the community's trust and underscored the critical importance of the mission. Through triumph in the midst of crisis, Thomas, Clara, and their team emerged stronger, their bonds of compassion and resilience unshaken, and Max's legacy as a symbol of hope cemented in the hearts of all who witnessed it. Determined to ensure that Edward's dream would flourish despite the challenges, Thomas and Clara organized a large-scale event to officially unveil the mobile clinic. The newly refurbished vehicle, a sleek, customized van adorned with Edward's favorite quote, "Every animal deserves a second chance, and every person deserves the joy they bring," stood gleaming in the bright light of a crisp morning. A massive crowd gathered, local media, community members, volunteers, and dignitaries came together in a celebration of resilience and hope. Thomas stepped onto the stage, his voice resonating with passion and unwavering conviction. "This isn't just a shelter or a mobile clinic. It's a living testament to the power of love, resilience, and community. Every life we save here is a tribute to Edward's dream and a promise that compassion can change the world." Clara followed, her voice soft yet resolute. "We honor him by giving Max the life he deserves and by ensuring that his vision continues to inspire us all." The event was filled with moving speeches, musical tributes, and even personal stories from those whose lives had been touched by the shelter's work. As the ceremony reached its climax, the crowd erupted in thunderous applause, affirming that the legacy of Edward Langley was secure. The unveiling was not merely a celebration. It was a declaration that the mission of compassion and care would persevere, unbowed by greed or adversity. In that moment, Thomas, Clara, and Max stood as living symbols of a future filled with promise, where every act of kindness reverberated across the community. Even as the mobile clinic's launch was celebrated, the lingering specter of Gerald's smear campaign and other external threats continued to haunt the edges of the community's collective consciousness. Anonymous online posts, threatening messages, and inflammatory ads cast long shadows over the progress that had been made. Determined not to let these dark forces undermine Edward's legacy, Thomas and Clara organized yet another town hall meeting, this time with the specific purpose of addressing and dispelling the negative narratives that had taken root. In a packed community hall filled with concerned citizens and local media representatives, Thomas laid out the facts methodically. He presented every piece of evidence that disproved Gerald's fabricated claims, from detailed financial records to testimonies from key witnesses. Clara, her voice strong with conviction, spoke of the journey they had undertaken, from the quiet mystery of a small dog outside a hospital to the collective triumph of a community united by compassion. "We will not let greed and deception overshadow our mission," she declared firmly. The meeting was punctuated by powerful testimonies, including those from Samantha and Elena, who provided irrefutable evidence of Gerald's manipulation. The room filled with a sense of unity and renewed purpose as community members pledged to stand together against those who would seek to exploit a legacy built on love. In that moment, the shadows began to recede, replaced by the bright light of truth and solidarity. The meeting served as both a cathartic release and a clarion call to protect what was rightfully theirs, a mission to keep Edward's dream alive and ensure that every act of kindness continued to ripple through the community. In the weeks that followed, the shelter transformed into a vibrant hub of activity and renewal. Local schools began partnering with the shelter to educate children about animal welfare and the importance of empathy, with Max serving as a gentle ambassador who brought smiles to every classroom he visited. Thomas extended his efforts beyond the urban center, traveling with the mobile clinic to remote rural areas where medical care and animal welfare services were scarce. Each visit became a story of hope, a chance to provide care to those who needed it most, whether human or animal. Every rescued pet, every smile sparked by a small act of kindness, was a living tribute to Edward's legacy. Quiet moments on the shelter's porch became sacred rituals for Thomas and Clara. Sitting with Max at their feet, they reflected on the long, arduous journey that had brought them to this point, a journey filled with challenges, losses, and ultimately, healing. "I'm doing this for Max, for Edward, and maybe even for ourselves," Thomas confessed one evening, his voice soft with vulnerability. Clara nodded, sharing her own confession of regret and hope, as together they pledged to continue the mission that had united them. In this renewed atmosphere, the community found strength in each other. People volunteered in record numbers, donations flowed in, and the shelter's new initiatives blossomed into programs that promised a brighter future for all who were touched by Edward's dream. The spirit of healing and renewal was palpable in every corner, transforming the shelter into not just a place of refuge for animals, but a beacon of hope for the entire community. Then, one day, as the mobile clinic was being readied for its next community outreach, Thomas received an unexpected call from a national animal welfare organization. They had taken notice of the shelter's incredible journey and the transformative impact of Edward's legacy. The invitation was clear and ambitious. Join a collaborative initiative aimed at expanding resources for underserved communities across the nation. Thomas's heart swelled with a mix of excitement and cautious optimism as he shared the news with Clara. "Edward's dream is about to reach even further than we ever imagined," he said, his voice filled with hope. Clara squeezed his hand warmly and replied, "Then let's honor him. Let's ensure that his legacy of compassion and hope shines bright for generations to come." In the following days, plans were set in motion for partnerships that would extend their work far beyond the confines of the local community. Meetings were held with influential figures, proposals were drafted, and a sense of purpose pervaded every discussion. The mobile clinic, already a familiar sight on quiet country roads and busy city streets, was now poised to become a national symbol of empathy and resilience. Volunteers from across the region expressed their eagerness to join the initiative, and even skeptical community members found themselves rallying behind the vision. With every new partnership, every pledge of support, Thomas and Clara felt the momentum of change building. A promise of a future where Edward's legacy would continue to inspire acts of kindness and unity far and wide. Thus, the journey continued, a winding path marked by community, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a man, his dog, and the countless lives they touched along the way. Max remained at the heart of it all. His gentle eyes and unwavering loyalty a living symbol of everything Edward had stood for. As Thomas and Clara looked toward the future, buoyed by the love of their community and the memory of a man who had believed in second chances, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would stand united in creating a kinder, more compassionate world. Over the months and years that followed, the mobile clinic became a familiar and trusted presence in both remote villages and bustling urban centers. Adorned with Edward's quote and the smiling face of Max, the vehicle served as a traveling haven for animals and a beacon of hope for people in need. Fundraising events, community fairs, and educational programs flourished, each one a testament to the enduring power of love and loyalty. The shelter, now lovingly known as Edward's Haven, grew into a sanctuary not only for rescued animals but also for hearts in need of healing. At one memorable community event held in a newly renovated park, Thomas accepted an award on behalf of the entire team. "This is not just for us, it's for the man who taught us that every small act of kindness creates ripples of change," he said, his words resonating deeply with everyone present. Quiet moments later, on the shelter's porch as the sun set and the world hushed into a gentle lull, Thomas, Clara, and Max sat together in reflective silence. They knew that Edward's legacy was not confined to memories or dusty files, but lived on in every compassionate act, every life touched, and every promise made to create a better future. And so, the story of Max, Edward, Thomas, and Clara continues. A story of loyalty, loss, resilience, and the transformative power of compassion that will shine brightly for generations to come. If this story has moved you, join us in making a difference. Subscribe to our channel for more uplifting tales of courage, resilience, and hope. Don't miss our next incredible journey, a story that will warm your heart and remind you the power of compassion.